this other question that I just want to address just because it's kind of fresh in my mind here.
Okay.
And it's this, No Nothing asks, if you were to recreate an actual theater Atmos experience, do you think up-firing speakers do better than in-ceiling? Saw an interview with Andrew Jones where he said that. I don't know. So first of all, Andrew Jones has made up-firing speakers, and I'm using some because Reverend Slim sent me his Pioneer.
4 of them, right? 4 of them?
Yeah, 4 up-firing speakers. Most people say that it's garbage. You know, they call it all kinds of names. And so I'm like, you know what? Let me see if it actually works. I tried it in my living room. I'm like, the heck, this works. Like, it really tricks you into thinking it's coming from above. Is it better? I don't know that it's better. Maybe in certain cases where if you have a really low ceiling, maybe you can't get a speaker that can, that has the right dispersion pattern.
Bounce.
So you're super off axis. Well, I'm saying if for actually putting height speakers up, if your ceiling is really low, you might not be able to get the correct angle, and have the speaker pointed to you, in which case bouncing it might be a better answer. So in certain cases, I think it could be better. Specific cases, flat ceiling, reflective ceiling, not something where it's absorbing everything. So it's very specific as far as
they said in the focal room, no obstacles.
Yeah.
She said no obstacles.
So it definitely can work. It definitely can work.
Yeah.
Is it better? I don't know that it's better. I mean,
I spoke with. Sorry, Joe.
No, you're good. I'm just saying my point just being it can work. It can provide a convincing experience. Don't let anybody tell you, it's absolutely garbage in every single situation. I think that it can work in certain situations. But is having speakers up, if you can do it, and if your room will allow it, and if your significant other will allow it, and if your budget will allow for it, then up, having speakers on your front and rear ceiling, or on having 6 speakers up there is probably going to be a better experience, right? In most cases, but not every single case.
Right. I was Jordan from Haterade Cowboy. He went to his buddy's house who just got the Nakamichi Dragon, and then he took our SACT disc over there. So I was just emailing with him today. He says, FYI, we just tested your disc on the Dragon, and the channel callouts and the Dragon were legit. It's not as great as because they're using bounce, right? They're using ceiling bounce from the front soundbar part and from the rears, and the rear ones you can actually adjust the angle at which it hits your ceiling, right? So he said the callouts and the Dragon was legit. Not as great as having discrete height speakers, but it still sounded like the sound was coming from above. So yeah, it can work. In the right room, it can work.
Reverend Slim says, I would never prefer the upfires over actual speakers, but if you can't do speakers up there, don't sleep on the upfires. They can get you there. And one Aquadon says, I know Sony HT89, which I've reviewed. Bounce style sucks because you don't have the ability to control bounce portion of the audio separately. Can't ever hear it. I'm selling it. Okay, so when I reviewed that, I reviewed it in the same room where I'm using these upfiring speakers. And when I reviewed them, I was also surprised how well those worked at providing somewhat of a height experience. It wasn't perfect still, but in that particular room, I think it's a 9 foot ceiling, somewhere around there, 8 or 9 foot ceiling, flat ceiling. It really worked. So the HT89 worked in that particular case, but maybe there's some rooms where it doesn't work, depending on where they're at. But I would say that what I think makes it work. We got new member. Yeah.
All right.
See you in the after show.
See you in the after show. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Yes.
He's over there. He lives over there next to Aaron.
Okay. All right.
I think. Is that the
cool,
right?
Man. Awesome. So what was I going to say? So to answer this question is I think that the Pioneer and the ELAC ones, they do the 2K dip. And the dip in the response at 2K is what I think makes it convincing, because 2 kilohertz is the frequency that corresponds with the distance between your ears. And so
it's nasty.
That's the perfect place. That's a perfect frequency to localize where something's coming from. So what they've done in those particular ones is they've taken out 2 kilohertz just for that up-firing speaker. So now it's like I can't tell exactly where it's coming from, but I do. So I can't tell where the initial sound is coming from, but I do hear a bounce from the ceiling, and it tricks my brain into thinking that the bounce is the source.
Yeah.
Versus if you keep the 2K in, I think what happens is your brain says, it's coming from there.
It's
first.
right over there. Yeah. Because
right
that 2K, that's a nasty sound that everybody will hear.
Yeah.
So if it's emanating from the speaker, you're gonna be like, it's right there.
There it is.
So they take it out. So what Joe's saying is right. The bounce happens. It's almost like you've got an in-ceiling speaker. You hear it from there.
I think that's the trick, though. That's the secret as to why this particular one works. 2 kilohertz, if it's the distance between your ears, that means that any small movement, which we do all the time without even knowing, making small movements like, pointing our ears like a dog, right? Like kind of, right? Moving our ears slightly, and you hear the difference, and that's what tells us where something is. Mm-hmm. So if you notch that out, you move your head, and you're like, well, I don't think it's coming from there, right? You think it's coming from the ceiling, but I don't know that other manufacturers are doing that because it doesn't seem to be part of the up-firing spec. I've seen the spec, and it calls for something else, but not a 2K dip. Mm-hmm. So I think that might be something that Andrew Jones just decided to do because
he's Andrew Jones.
And I'm like, that should be part of the spec, because I don't know if other people are using up-firing speakers that still have 2K. I've added it back in just as an experiment. So with DSP, I put 2K back in, and it totally messed up the effect. Like I could, it's coming from the front speaker. Anyway, there's that. Make sure to check out our audio-only version of the podcast at anchor.fm/Daily HiFi, or just go to your favorite podcasting service and search for Daily HiFi.